start with adding security to the entire journey and not just at the end. So adding security from the point that you collect the data to the training, to the development, to the deployment, and then on production continuously work in order to see if there are some issues and mitigate these issues. So the entire life cycle is very important to add security to.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our interview with Yossi Altevet. Yossi is a CTO of DeepKeep, which is a provider of AI native trust, risk, and security management solution. And Yossi is an experienced product innovator with more than 25 years of experience in product innovation management. Yossi, welcome to our risk management show podcast today.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. So today we will discuss a very important topic of AI security platforms on the cornerstone of the AI and generative AI ecosystem. But before that, Ronnie, could you tell us a short story about yourself, your career path, what brought you to where you are right now, and what you guys at DeepKeep are up to these days?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Yossi Altevet. I have more than 25 years of experience in high tech, half of the time in R&D positions, and another half in CTO offices, innovation, as an innovation manager, product manager, and so on. I actually started my career 25 years ago when we did in a cybersecurity company, cybersecurity startup, where we did anomaly detection for web content. We used fuzzy logic. Back then, it wasn't AI. And it's amazing how 25 years later, we still talk about anomaly detection, and we still talk about the same terminology. Fortunately, different technology, but same terminology. I worked with Ronnie, which is the CEO, in LiveView and in DriveView. We actually in LiveView we did live broadcasting technology, and we did joint venture with AP, the Associated Press. And we wanted to find the next breaking news using AI. So we actually had AI model that takes social media and provides the next breaking news. Amazingly, was easily tricked by fake news, and we got this eureka moment that, hey, if that AI is very, very good, but it can easily be tricked, the adoption of AI is going to grow rapidly. And we need some way to make sure that the output of that AI is trustworthy and cannot be tricked very easily.
Mm-hmm. Let's discuss what you mean by AI security platforms. Can you start explaining what AI security platforms are and why they are considered the cornerstone of the AI and GenAI ecosystem?
Right. So AI is, and we know that AI is going to be used and used very rapidly, and the adoption is growing ever, fast. But apparently, it's easy to manipulate these AI decisions, and it easily can be stolen. Data can be stolen very easily, and so on. There are a few types of risk when we talk about deployment of AI. One risk can be adversarial attack, so that adversarial attack meaning that you can trick the model into doing things or making decisions that the owner of the AI model is not intended to do. There are cyber attacks on AI, things like malicious, Trojan horses and malicious code injected into the neural net or into the wrappers of the serialization of the AI. There are some privacy risks associated with leakage of data, private data leakage, data extractions, and so on. And of course nowadays we see more and more attacks on Gen AI. It's when in LLM there are some attacks like hallucination, jailbreaking, prompt injection, and also trustworthiness issues like hallucination, toxicity, fairness issue, confidence issue, drift, and so on.
Mhm. So let's go deep in this vulnerabilities in LLMs and computer vision models, because large language models and computer vision models are key components of generative AI. And what are the primary vulnerabilities? You mentioned them. Maybe you can kind of do more broad description, and how kind of they disrupt security, trustworthiness, and privacy. And what may be some steps to mitigate this?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, we differentiate between the risk can be differentiated into two parts. One is more security related risk, and security related risk are mainly, including jailbreaking, manipulation, evasion, stealing, and so on. These are more security risk related to AI. The second type is more trustworthiness, and trustworthiness is related to the fact that we're relying on the decision of the AI, and we want to make sure that we can rely on these decisions. And these trustworthiness risk include hallucination, the fact that these AI can hallucinate and generate some hallucinated topic. By the way, that is relevant for both LLM and vision. But the risk are, these are two risk types that we identify. What we've said in DeepKeep is that you cannot treat one type without treating or without handling the second type. So you cannot have a very robust model, but you cannot really rely on it, or vice versa. You cannot have a very trustworthy, and it can be easily broken by hackers. In that case, what we said is that we need a platform, one unified platform with the same technology that provides both security and trustworthiness, both features that mitigate security actions, security attacks, like again, PII leakage, evasion, stealing, and so on, and as well as trustworthiness risk, including hallucination and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe to touch upon how we do that, how we mitigate this risk, or how this platform mitigates this risk. So in order to mitigate this risk, we have this multi-layer approach. In that multi-layer approach, the first layer, detectors and protectors, are based on static protectors, meaning looking into pixels if that's an image, or looking into specific tokens if that's an LLM. On top of that, we have another layer, which is more heuristics algorithms. And on top of that, we have like regular AI algorithms like anomaly detection and others. And at the top of it, we have the Gen AI itself. So we have these multi-layers that starts with static analysis and static prevention to up to the point that we have that Gen AI protection that actually we're leveraging Gen AI to do the protection.
Mm. Let's discuss a safe and ethical deployment of this software. What are the main challenges in this ethical deployment of AI system, and safe also? And how can an organization address these challenges effectively?
Yeah, so that's a good point, and the fact that Gen AI can generate content, whether that's image, vision, voice, text, and so on. It means that this content has to be ethical or meets the ethical guidelines. If you have, let's say, a chatbot that provides cells or any type of assistant to external users, you want that chatbot to be fair. And you want that chatbot to say things in a certain way and not, to provide any data that can be harmful, toxic, or even unfair. So in order to protect these AIs, usually you do two things. One of the things before you go to deployment, and this is something that we provide, is doing penetration testing or evaluation testing. Evaluation testing and penetration testing really says at the end of the day, what are the vulnerabilities before you go to deployment? Does it have the propensity to generate hallucinated data, something that you need to be rely on, right? Does it have the propensity to say unfair content or generate unfair content? Does it have the propensity to generate toxic or harmful data? That's something that you need to know before you go to deployment. Once you have that report, once you have that evaluation, and you mitigate all these vulnerabilities, you go to deployment. And even when you go to deployment, you need to make sure that your AI is protected. And usually this is done by using a firewall. It's like a regular firewall, but it's like a layer 7 firewall that looks into the content and provide mitigations, alternation, obfuscation, and other mitigations options.
Fantastic. So let's discuss about preventing mistakes in AI models. So what common mistakes do AI models make, and how can developers and the organization work to prevent this from errors from compromising system integrity?
Right, that's a good point. I mean, when you use LLM, when enterprises or use LLM, they usually take LLM from an open source, right? Hugging Face or other model repo. And this LLM, and that can be also vision, right? These models are trained on data that you don't have access to, right? That data can have contaminated data, that can have unfair information, and so on and so forth. So at the end of the day, when you use that LLM or when you use that model, the model generates content that can be harmful content, toxic content, and so on and so forth. Even leakage of data that is sensitive, that you learned that the data was used during the training. So in order to prevent that data to be leaked, or to prevent that data, that model to generate harmful content, what you usually do is, again, you do the evaluation before you go to deployment. You add a firewall, and one of the options to let's say to prevent hallucination is to do some fact checking. We obviously we recommend to look at the data that you use for fine tuning, to look at the data that you use when you add data to the RAG, in order to make sure that the data that was used for the fine tuning and the data that was used or is used in the RAG is not already contaminated with some prompt injection and so on and so forth. This type of attack is called indirect prompt injection, because you're using some proxy or you're using some other type in the ecosystem to attack the model.
Awesome. So let's discuss how we build trustworthy in maybe on if you have some case studies, maybe without dropping the name. because trustworthiness is crucial for the adoption of AI technologies. And what steps can be taken to enhance this trustworthiness AI systems in the eyes of users and stakeholders?
Yeah, so when we specifically when we talk to customers, they currently they seem to adopt LLM as I mean in two ways. One is internal LLM to provide some better decision taking or decision making in the organization. So that's one type of deployment that we see. Another type is using LLM to do some external information assistance. So, for instance, if you want to call for a bank to take a mortgage, or if you want to take some recommendations on sales and so on, these LLMs are used to provide that information. Now, these LLMs are usually, for that second case, they are trained or fine-tuned on particular data. So as I mentioned before, be sure that that data that these models are trained, these models are fine-tuned, and the data that is used for RUG, and also the agents that you're using are safe. They include data that you scanned, and we also in DeepKeep we're doing the scanning, the data scanning before they are used in to the fine tuning or used in the RUG. And one additional thing that you need to do is to fact check the data and make sure that the LLM does not provide any hallucinated data. We all know the DPD case and Air Canada case in which it provided information that it shouldn't have, or take some commitment that the company did not want to take, and so on and so forth. So you need to make sure that the data is on the rail or on the track, and it doesn't do any hallucination, it doesn't take any decision on its own on behalf of the company. By the way, as you know, as a fact, these LLMs are the companies that are using the companies that are using these LLMs are accountable to the data that these LLM generate. So you need to make sure that these data is safe. You need to make sure that you don't have any things like publication or anything that related to the brand damage and so on. If you LLM.
Right. So, Yossi, I would like to ask you a personal point of view. So, what are the major misconceptions in this field of generative AI ethics that you kind of strongly disagree with?
So when we talk to companies and data scientists that are using AI, sometimes we hear that the AI is very accurate. We spend a year or even 2 years to have the most accurate model that can possibly be developed. And the misconception is that accuracy or high accuracy is not related to security. I mean, you can have a very high accurate, a very accurate model, but still it can be broken in just a few examples or a few prompts or images if that's in the vision. And this is something that we need to differentiate. Sometimes, I mean, you have two KPIs or two types of things that you need to check. One is accuracy, and that's a very, very good and very, very valid KPI. But the second one is security and trustworthiness. Moreover, I can say that the more the model is accurate, the more susceptible to attack it is, unless you take some actions to mitigate that.
Awesome. So let's discuss the future of AI security. Looking ahead, what developments do you foresee in the field of AI security platforms, and how might this advancement further protect against
Yeah.
vulnerabilities and ethical issues?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good question. And I think that these platforms should be context aware. I mean, if we look at the security, if we look at the security posture, we can see that more and more attacks are related to the context, related to the application, and not specifically related to some kind of a very generic attack. Um, these platforms, they um, they need to be context aware or application aware. They need to have that awareness or that understanding that the context of the application in order to provide the best security. So protection of an LLM, for instance, for healthcare company is different than protection of an LLM that provides e-learning or advisory to stock market and to the stock market and so on. So being very specific, very adaptive to the context is one key thing. The second part is automation, and that's very important thing. And we in DeepKeep we spend a lot of effort in doing automation. These firewalls are not just simple firewall that you can configure like in the regular firewall you have the port 80 TCP, just block it and then you feel comfortable that you're protected. It's not like that. There are many semantics, there are many hyperparameters, there are many this again because of the fact that applications are different, because of the fact that the input space is infinite. The output space is also infinite. You need to have the entire protection be automated, or the configuration and the entire detection and protections have to be automated. And in order to do that, you need to use Gen AI also. We're using Gen AI. Again, we're also leveraging the fact that Gen AI is awesome and has its semantic understanding. And we're using that in order to do that automation and expedite the protection um, of models.
All right, fantastic. Maybe last question. What advice would you give to organizations that are just beginning to focus on strengthening their security protocols in AI and doing this generative AI as a new kind of experience, a new project?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a few things. I would start with adding security to the entire journey and not just at the end. So adding security from the point that you collect the data to the training, to the development, I mean, to the deployment, and then on production, continuously work in order to see if there are some issues and mitigate these issues. So the entire life cycle is very important to add security to. Add that to the CI to your CI/CD, so everything would be automated and it will not hamper or it will not delay or add any delays to the protection to the deployment. So that's one thing that you need to take into account. The second thing that you need to take into account is the entire ecosystem. And if you look at AI security, don't just look at a specific model or how to protect a specific model, but think of it more broadly on how to protect the entire ecosystem. And it starts again by looking at the components of the ecosystem. If that's an LLM, for instance, and you have RAG, you have agents, you have data that you use for retraining, you have the open source that you took from the different open source repos. Look at the entire ecosystem, right? Look at attacks like supply chain attack. Look at attacks like denial of service on specific LLM or agents, look at indirect prompt injection and prompt injection, and so on. Not just on the LLM, which again, that's a misconception that we hear. Sometimes companies say, okay, I have this hardening of a particular model, I feel safe. And then when you look at the entire ecosystem, you see that the data that was used is not safe or contaminated. Or when you see that the agents that are hooked into the model are not saved, and and bring some data that can be easily manipulated, and so on and so forth.
Fantastic, Yossi. That's all my questions. Perhaps if I forgot to ask you something that you will feel important for our audience, please go ahead.
No, so I think the key takeaway is again to look at the ecosystem and not just to look at the particular model. That's one thing. To take the security as a security first approach, meaning everything that you do when you create the data, when you take the data, check it before you use it. When you have the model, before you go to deployment, just use penetration testing, automatic penetration testing. There's a lot of issues that can be found, both security and trust. Again, I mean, the fact that these models can include malicious code or some Trojan horses, that's something that you want to scan before you use. So that's the best practice. And of course, doing the monitoring on the way, on the go. So look at some incidents, investigate these incidents, see if that incidents, if you have false positive and false negative, use that data in order to retrain back the model. And this is something that we do in order, again, to leverage AI, in order to fine tune that AI to the right application. And again, think of application that's something that you need to protect, and not just the the input and the output of the model.
All right, fantastic, Yossi. Thank you for your very thoughtful interview, and I wish you and DeepKeep success in your journey. Maybe in next few months we can discuss about another topic with you guys.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.